Welcome to the Igniting the CEO Within podcast, where we interview successful, high-level professionals to discover lessons they've learned throughout their career that can help ignite that CEO within you. I'm Mark McFatridge, and I'll be your host for the next 15 minutes or so. Our show is sponsored by Quaid, a nationwide community of CEOs and entrepreneurs. Quaid has developed Launchpad, which offers an opportunity for experienced executive coaches and fractional executives to become licensed circle directors. After completing the Launchpad program, you'll lead your own peer advisory circles, helping other CEOs and entrepreneurs excel in their professional and personal lives while providing a community of accountability, challenge, and support. If you'd like to learn more, go to quaidcircle.com. I am really excited about our show today. We have Alex Chaparro. He is executive coach for PowerUP Coaching Solutions in Chicago, Illinois. Alex, welcome to the show.
Hey, it's great to be here. Thank you so much for the invite.
Alex, your background is amazing. So I'm just going to jump right into it so we don't waste any time. You work with a ton of leaders and have throughout your entire professional career. Certainly you've seen some that were great and some that were not so great. If you were to start to boil it down to a trait or two that separates the really, really good leaders from let's just say the ones who need some work, what would those be?
You know, I think that's a great question, and it's one that I continually see come before me, and I think that there's seeds that you're looking for, and one of them is leaders that don't need to prove themselves right, don't have to be right, and people who are curious and leaning in. I always say a great leader doesn't let a good mistake go to waste. These are people who are constant learners and are not too worried about making mistakes. And the other thing, I think this is an interesting thing. I think as we grow as people, we find our sweet spot of where we really like to be. Now, I have always loved being a manager, even though I own my own company, I'm a leader. But I know that when it's time for management time, I'm your guy. But a lot of times leaders will confuse the two, and you have to practice and be good at both those lanes and know where you are. So I think that some of the leaders that I work with is that I'm demanagizing them,
Yeah.
taking them out of the manager, or sometimes the leader needs to actually roll up their sleeves and actually get some work done. And I'll say, hey, you're going to have to understand what hat you're wearing. And I think that an effective leader knows what hat they're wearing, knows what really is in the heart, so that you can be resilient and pivot when you need to.
That's really good. It is a fine line, right? Like you are walking a fine line between those two roles, because if you overstep, either way, if you overstep, you can start to alienate your team.
Mhm.
How do you walk people through that fine line to understand what role they need to play at what particular time?
From a coaching standpoint, I have had the privilege of coaching amazing leaders at the CEO level, running amazing companies. And no matter where they're at, and, you think these are basic things that we know. And I'll say, hey, it always gets to this. I'll say, hey, Mark, by the way, what is the difference between a leader and a manager? And after you are in you're in the front lines of the battlefields of growing your business, these lines start to mix. And I'm like, hey, I always say when things get tough, the tough get back to basics. Do you mind if we just like lay out the definition? And I would say 9 times out of 10, they're just like, you know what? I lost focus on what the definitions were, what the
Yeah.
words were. I was going based on feelings and reacting. And then we start to rebuild the leader and say, hey, okay, where are you? What are your strong points? Maybe some people are like totally leaders, some people are totally managers. But the key here is that just because like me, I always say I am a manager. And I kid you not, I walk into like any kind of big box store, and people will walk up to me and assume that I'm the manager. And I'm like I say to my wife, like, what? And one time I made a mistake that I wore a red shirt going into Target.
Uh-huh.
Do that. Don't do that, because people thought I was the manager. And I had to leave the store. I was like, I got to get out of here. And so just because you have your strong suit doesn't mean that you can't grow to and sort of rise to the occasion. But I think that understanding that definition and being mindful of it really help someone be the best and most effective that they can be and really show up for their people and their business.
I yeah, that's really good stuff. I think one of the things, and we talk about a lot at Quaid is, especially in the entrepreneur world and the founder world, as you build an organization from scratch, you have to do everything right at the beginning, right? You have to do literally everything, and
Yeah,
that's important at the beginning, but it's not sustainable
right,
if you want to scale. And so, that next step is how ultimately you need to figure out what is your best and highest use for the organization. And that and then get in there and stay in that lane, right?
right.
That's not easy,
Oh,
right?
it's
Like
not. Mm-mm.
how do you help leaders get to that point?
I am in this category, guilty as charged.
Yeah,
I'll have a task and I'll say, you know what? I, I'm going to have to delegate this, but I think I could do it better and faster. And so, what's the point in even asking?
right.
I have an actual staff, like, and even yesterday, I was just like, almost like cringing to give the assignment to someone. And I'm like, why do you feel you have to do this? Why can't you just let go? So you are right. It is starting to separate. And here's the thing, and this is what I think a lot of leaders don't want to recognize. I'm not just delegating work, I'm delegating the things that I love to do. Because I remember when I started this company, I was everything. And
Mhm.
I love the heavy lifting. I love doing that work. And so now I have to give it to somebody else to do because there's more effective things that I need to do with my time. So I think that's the critical part of one is just being honest of how you feel about the work and also understanding when you look in the mirror who you are and who you need to be. There's this great book, and I'm gonna totally chop it up. So I apologize to your viewers, but there's this book that what got you here won't get you there.
For sure.
And I think that when I'm coaching leaders, they're at that crossroads and it takes a lot and it's a lot of emotion to be able to say I'm going to let go and I'm going to trust. And then one of the things that I coach on is, like I said when we first started, don't let a good mistake go to waste. People are going to make mistakes. That's part of growth. There's nothing wrong with that, and there's no such thing as perfection. So once people start to have some a good foundation with this, then they can really grow.
Yeah, that's good. I once had a gentleman by the name of Rick Malier, who is the founder of a fast casual barbecue chain called City Barbecue.
Yeah.
And early on in his scaling of City Barbecue, he was sitting down with his CPA, and the CPA said, "Hey, so how are you spending your time?" And he goes, "Well, a couple times a week, I like to go to the pit and start, yeah, and really cook because that's where this thing started." And the CPA is like, "Okay, cool. How much do you pay your pit master?" He's like, "Oh, like $35 an hour or something like that." He goes, "That's what you're valuing your time at."
Yeah.
And Rick said he took a step back and was like, "Okay, I get it. I need to focus on where I'm the most valuable for my company, and it's not spending time in the pit."
Yeah,
Right?
that's such a powerful observation, and it sums up, when you need to have that breakaway moment. But it goes to it like, why does he go to the pit? Because that's where his heart is. That's what he loves
Right.
to do. So sometimes I say, hey, it's a little bit of grieving. You got to let it go, but don't hide the feelings because if you don't understand why you're holding, it's going to be hard to let it go for somebody else. And here's one thing that I think people forget about having that servant's heart about what leadership is. Leadership is about developing people. So you're replacing your place in the pit to be able to develop somebody to have that same love and capacity that you had, and you could replicate it by 100, and that's where leadership is.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think we forget that by empowering people or delegating things to people, they get the opportunity to shine and learn something new. And like you said, that's the real role of a leader.
Absolutely. And it's an art. I mean, like you replace the work that you used to do, and there's some artistry and passion there. and then you start growing your enterprise and developing other people, and then that's like, I think that's where the real magic is. When you look at great leaders, they are churning great leaders behind them, and it's like, they are the ones that are, redefining the landscape of what possibilities are in business, because they're bringing people. I always say to people, when you work for me, even as my admins, I'm like, I would be very disappointed if you didn't move up even
Right.
beyond me. It's just my privilege to be able to help somebody grow to where I'm at and beyond. And I think that's the gift of leadership, that you're able to do that.
Yeah, that's huge. You talked about being a continuous leader or learner as being something that's really important as you establish your leadership and continue to grow. Talk about continue to talk about that importance of continuous learning and what does that look like?
Oh yeah, well, for each of us, it could be in many forms, and I like to have fun with it. So I go from the very rudimentary, like for instance, I had gone through a weight loss transformation, and so you would think, like, you're gonna go to weight loss transformation, you're gonna go to gym or something. So I had lost 200 pounds in the last
Whoa.
4 years. And so one of the things that I did is that I went to violin. I learned to play the violin.
Okay.
And so that was fun, being the oldest person, and the kid that really rocked it was 9 years old.
Uh
And they're learning how to play the violin. And you're learning all these tedious things. So, and then I bought a motorcycle, and people thought, oh my God, you're 50 years old and you're buying a motorcycle. What are you doing? So I didn't buy it necessarily to care to ride it, but I was fixing it. And I learned how to fix it. I don't know
huh.
anything about tools.
Yeah.
So you start learning these new things, and your mind starts expanding. And then you're able to bring that to the forefront in terms of how resilient you are, how fast you think. And the more uncomfortable places you put yourself, the stronger you get. So I went back to school. So I'm taking, I never finished my undergraduate. So I'm like 10 credit hours away. So I went back there. I say to people, I'm on the 38-year graduate program. So I went back, and I'm usually older than the teacher, but it's like a humbling experience. And what's amazing as a leader is just to see the brilliance and the raw talent of the emerging
hmm
workforce that's coming. I'm in the class, and I'm like, wow, these guys are blowing me away. And it's the discipline and just what's going on in the brain. I'm not a neuroscience, but when you start learning new things, your capacity as a human being enhances. So I consider myself a student of leadership. I want to continue learning. And then the other thing is, good networkers. I'm meeting literally the future leaders of America right in those classrooms,
hmm
and the networking is amazing. So I'm either learning stuff like how to figure out how to add an attachment to a motorcycle, or
hmm
actually taking college credit courses. It's continual learning is critical. And the other thing is, like, if I'm going to say to you that I'm going to be a teacher, but I can't even be a student, then how effective I'm going to be. So I love being in the classroom,
hmm
either in the seats or in front. And I like making those transitions, and I think it's good to keep you relevant and resilient and flexible, for certainly.
What I love about that story, Alex, is I think when people, especially as leaders, they start thinking about being a continuous learner, that they think, "Oh my God, I've got to read how many more leadership books do I have to read?" Right?
Yes.
And what you pointed out, which I love and 1,000% agree with, is no, no, no. It's keeping your brain fresh. It's learning different things that put you in different situations, that test you, that push you, that challenge you. That's what makes you a better leader. It's not how many, whatever books I can read on leadership and all that. It's how do I just keep my brain fresh and looking at things from different angles. That's cool.
Yeah, yeah, and it's fun too, because you meet new people and you get out there. I always One thing that I learned from the weight loss is that I used to w- feel that as a leader, that the best virtue that I had is that I could take a lot. That I could, like, if the pressure was bad, or if
Yeah.
I was needed to work 7 days a week, I could take it.
hmm
What I realized is that when I started to really change my life, and it enhanced my leadership, is that I don't take pain. I'll be uncomfortable, but I'm going to solve pain. I'm not going to take it.
Hmm.
So I'm going to be intolerant. I'm going to be tolerant and flexible for a lot of things, but when it comes to withstanding pain, I'm going to nip it in the bud. If there's a problem, I'm going to work with you to solve it. I'm not going to let things fester and tolerate it. And that was the transition point. A lot of people say, "Well, what was the big aha of losing 200 pounds?" There was really no aha moment. It was just that I'm going to, rather than have the virtue of saying that I can put up with stuff, I'm going to say that I don't tolerate things not working, and I'm going to commit myself to fixing it. And I'll take the same hard work. It's
Yeah,
just a different nuance, and it changed my life.
that's powerful. Congratulations. That's huge.
Thank you. Thank you.
Man, this has been so good. I want to start to wrap up and ask you one question. When you think back, and I'm really excited to ask you this question. When you think back to 21-year-old Alex, what is one thing that you wish he knew that you've learned over these years?
Yeah, I've been asking myself that question quite a bit, because now I'm asking 70-year-old Alex what to say to 56-year-old Alex. And I would say, you know what? Your dreams are worth something. Don't be afraid to live who you are. And you could be mindful and care about the situations that you're in, but 20 years from now, you're not going to have the same problems. So that's not to say I didn't not to care, but it's saying to just don't be afraid.
Hmm.
Don't be afraid and take those steps forward. Take it courageous. Don't be afraid if you fall down because you could always get back up. That's what I would say.
That's awesome. Very cool. Hey, do
Thanks.
me a favor. Would you share with our audience what a typical engagement looks like with you? And most importantly, how can people get a hold of you?
Yeah, sure. So, first step is to go to my website, powerupcoaching.net. And, the engagement, when I start working with a person, it's really about them. I always believe that you are always at the level that you're at, and that's the perfect place to be because you could only grow from there. So I really look at the person, I look at what their goals are, and really start looking at the pathways from getting from point A to point B, but letting them know that it's never going to be a straight line. Life is a zigzagging line to get from point A to point B. The other thing that I really love and being the privilege of being in the room with great people is that I'm like, why are we plotting the course from point A to point B? Why don't we go from like 4 or 5 steps down the road and really create a comprehensive plan for growth and develop a growth mindset that's really fueled by curiosity. So I could go on. You asked me
Yeah.
a question where I like
No,
you
no,
got
this is awesome.
lit up, so I'm really about the people and really being there for them to really find out what it means and define what personal growth means for them. I don't give them the definition of personal growth as far as what's in Webster's definition. We define it for what it means for them. And that's the greatest privilege that I have as a coach.
That's so cool. I love the no, let's really see what you want. Not what's going to happen in a year, not what's going to happen in 3 years. Where do you want to be? And dude, I love it. That's awesome. Alex, this has been so great. Thank you for taking some time and hanging out with me today. I appreciate you.
It's my pleasure. Glad to be here.
All right, y'all. We have done it again. We found another amazing leader who was willing to share his insights and wisdom with us. So appreciative of Alex joining us today. As we wrap up, I want to remind you that Igniting the CEO Within is sponsored by Quade, a nationwide community of CEOs and entrepreneurs. Quade has created Launchpad, which provides an opportunity for experienced executive coaches to become licensed circle directors and significantly impact the lives of CEOs and entrepreneurs. To find out more, visit quadecircle.com. Until next time, keep igniting that CEO within you. I'm Mark McFatridge. Thanks for listening.